Hello everyone, investment scams rampant. Please vigilant and discerning. Do not trust information from unknown sources. Please make sure to recognize two official Capital Securities community, Facebook, Capital Securities, YouTube, Capital Wealth Insights.
Hello everyone, welcome to Capital Good Night. Today is Wednesday, March 25th. I'm analyst Jang Jada. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any investment questions, feel free to leave a comment. If I can't get to them today, I'll answer them one by one in tomorrow's class. Of course, as usual, I'll also answer questions from the message board and live chat during the show. We have quite a few questions today, so I'll take some time later to go over them with you. All right, good evening, everyone. The market is unpredictable, and the conflict between the U.S. and Iran continues to affect global stock markets. Good evening, Hui Jun, and good evening, Mei Daitzi. I just saw Mei Daitzi say she's going on a trip tomorrow, right? How long will you be gone? 8 days or so? Mei Daitzi just asked a question. She said, for example, she's going abroad for 8 days, so should she sell her stocks? A while back, one of our students, Luden is great, shared some travel logs and content on the message board about his trip to Paris and, what was it, Iceland? I found it very, very practical. If you have time, check out his post on the message board. There's a lot of great information there to share. So regarding Mei Daitzi's question about whether to sell or reduce stock positions before going abroad, I'd suggest that if your current holdings are too heavy or quite high, you should reduce them to enjoy your trip with peace of mind. If you're traveling and your position is large, you might worry about the next 5 to 8 days or even half a month. While you're away, the market might be too volatile, so I'd recommend reducing your position. Whether you're in the green or not, just trim it a bit to stay calm. When you return, you can decide whether to add back or reevaluate. I think this is a safer and better approach. Also, who else is online? Flying Fish, good evening. And Yulan, Leek Little White, X-Fu, good evening. Coco Lee, Emily, and Gui, good evening to you all. Hello, Alvin Chen. I just saw Leek Little White say he's checking in while on a date. Well, welcome. Feel free to bring your partner online sometime. Okay, let's look at today's investment highlights. First, the market is focused on the U.S.-Iran conflict, right? So is Trump's proposal for a one-month ceasefire a real truce, or is it just a smokescreen? Starting the day before yesterday, he mentioned a 5-day ceasefire, agreeing not to bomb Iran's power plants or energy facilities. Then yesterday, the latest news said he proposed 15 specific demands. We actually covered these 15 demands in yesterday's show. Besides explaining what they are later, he's reportedly offering a one-month truce in exchange for these 15 demands. Is this one-month truce for real? Honestly, it's still uncertain, so don't be overly optimistic. It's not confirmed yet, because while he was proposing this one-month truce, he actually deployed paratroopers and Marines to the Middle East. So whether he's serious about a truce or if it's just a smokescreen to delay the escalation of the conflict, we don't know. We'll summarize the info on the ceasefire versus the smokescreen later. Also, regarding the Fed, Chairman Powell hasn't spoken in a while. Powell might be facing a Supreme Court investigation into alleged fraud involving the Fed's building construction. Trump originally wanted to use this against him. But for now, it seems the court has ruled that there was no illegality involved, so Powell might just get off scot-free. As for what that means for the Fed's policies, that's a very important point. Finally, regarding the industry side, I'll also add some info on what sectors and news Microsoft and NVIDIA are prioritizing. Don't forget, Microsoft and NVIDIA are both major players in AI, whether as CSPs or chip makers. There's one specific industry that's vital to them. Make sure to note what it is. Lastly, let's talk about Circle. CRCL hit a regulatory red line with the banks. What exactly was it, and why did it cause their stock to plunge 20% yesterday? If you hold stocks in stablecoin issuers or cryptocurrencies, or even stocks like Coinbase, it's crucial to know how to view them right now. All right, besides covering today's key points, it's 8:30 p.m. Good evening, CP, and good evening to you too, BB. The U.S. Import Price Index for February will be released at 8:30. The previous value was 0.2, and it's expected to rise slightly to 0.5. We should keep an eye on this tonight because if inflation keeps climbing, the monthly import price rate might increase. If it does, manufacturers' costs, PPI, and CPI could all start rising. So watch the data tonight, though I don't think the February data will have a huge impact since it's still just February. Remember, the conflict started around February 28th this year, or more precisely, March 1st. So whether it's the import price index, CPI, PPI, or even PCE, I believe the real surge will show up in the March data. The March data won't be out until April. So looking at the February data, like the import price index coming out at 8:30 tonight, I don't expect it to move the market much since it's still February's numbers. But you'll need to be extremely careful with the March data. All right, good evening, Michelin. BB asked if memory prices have bottomed out. It doesn't look like it yet. As long as it stays above the quarterly and 50-day moving averages, the current consolidation should be manageable. After all, memory companies have a lot of AI-related tailwinds, both in Taiwan and the US market, like Micron. SanDisk, or the two big Korean firms, Samsung and SK Hynix, all have HBM and other themes supporting them. In Taiwan, we have Nanya, Winbond, Adata, Transcend, and so on. I think I saw some news today. It said Nanya Technology had a private placement last year, maybe in June, worth over 70 billion Taiwan dollars. Supposedly Samsung, SanDisk, and Hynix all participated. Now, that's just what the news reported, but if you actually ask Nanya Technology, Nanya's relevant department and spokesperson said they can't disclose details because it involves client confidentiality. So whether it's true or what the specifics are, we might see official announcements in the next few days. Just keep it in mind. Either way, these memory companies are all forming strategic partnerships, whether for DRAM, DDR4, DDR5, or HBM. Okay, SY, good evening. Hello. All right, let's take another look. Besides looking at the monthly import price index at 8:30 tonight, I'll answer a few student questions first. One is from Lou Dan, who asked how to draw trend lines. Sometimes on the show we draw K-lines and trend lines, whether they're Dow theory patterns like M-tops, W-bottoms, or even triangle convergences and such. How exactly do you draw trend lines, support, and all that? Well, I'll just mention two simple principles. Of course, if you have time, you can go online or buy books to see how to draw trend lines. You can get very deep and detailed with trend lines, and there are many tips, methods, and principles, like how it breaks support, how to connect lows, and how to connect highs. So I'll just stick to two commonly used things, which are this trend line, like this blue one here, whether you're drawing a neckline or a pattern, just remember that you can draw a resistance line through two relative highs, and you can draw a support line through two relative lows. So with support and resistance, you'll naturally form various Dow theory patterns, triangles, diamonds, or broadening patterns, and so on. But the premise is you have to draw them correctly. So what are relative lows and relative highs? Let's just look at this chart of the Magnificent Seven. Looking at the Magnificent Seven from last October until now, you can see quite simply why I chose this point and this point as lows. It's very clear. Whenever it hits a low, it bounces back up. So you can connect two relative lows to form a trend line. And that line connecting the lows is called support. Conversely, if there are highs, for example, if you see a very representative high or the absolute peak, you connect those peaks or representative highs and it forms a strong resistance line. Okay, that's the first principle. The second principle to remember when drawing trend lines, once you know how to draw support and resistance, is what? Don't draw them too steep, because steep trend lines are often easily broken, making them less useful for reference. What do I mean by not too steep? Generally speaking, the steepest your trend line should be is no more than 60 degrees. Remember those protractors from elementary school? Just eyeball it. As long as it's under 60 degrees, it's usually within a manageable range. If it's too steep, like 80 or 90 degrees, it doesn't really mean much. It's not very useful. So in principle, anywhere from 0 degrees, a horizontal line, up to 60 degrees is what I consider a reliable trend line for reference. Now, if the trend line you've drawn is constantly being broken to the downside or upside, then that line's reference value is quite low. You'll need to go back and find more suitable lows or highs and redraw your lines. These extended support and resistance lines from trend lines have immense practical value in actual trading, but the key is you must know how to draw them correctly. It's not just about connecting any random lows. They must be representative relative lows or the absolute lowest points. Then make the connections, but don't just connect them randomly. Sometimes people draw them all over the place, and in the end, they're connecting lows to highs and wondering which point to hit next. Eventually, you'll find these lines have no reference value. Of course, during this process, everyone is constantly learning and trying to figure out how to draw these lines. The more you draw, the more you'll start to feel that. Whether looking at an index or individual stocks, there will be many unique patterns that you'll be able to draw, and you'll develop what we call a feel for the market. So that answers Lou Dan's question on how to draw trend lines. Now, for the second point, we mentioned earlier that Lou Dan has this 8-minute documentary. Of course, if you have time and he happens to post it on his YouTube channel, you should check it out. I just took a look and it seems he hasn't uploaded it yet, which is a bit of a shame. He mentioned his trip to Iceland and Paris. He just got back and left some notes on the message board about Paris and Iceland, some specific details. Lots of stuff like prices, pickpockets, and visiting the Blue Ice Cave and Blue Lagoon hot springs. Quite a lot. I'm pretty envious. All right, let's answer another question from 000. Good evening, 000 and Little Donkey, and good evening, Jeffrey. Hey, Jeffrey, where have you been the last few days? Were you in Iceland too? Good evening, Caesar. Okay, regarding 000's question from yesterday, he asked, Teacher, if the war actually ends, will the stock market really go up, or will it be a case of buy the rumor, sell the news? It's positive news, but will the market definitely rise just because the war ends? Well, let me tell you. Will it rise when the war ends? Yes, it will. But how much? It might just be a short-term play, lasting a day or two, a brief period where everyone is, shall we say, celebrating or dancing with joy. But after that short-term rally, you need to be careful. Why do I say it's not a long-term rise? Because a short-term bounce is just a reaction, reflecting that the initial non-economic shocks and geopolitical risks that caused the market to fall have passed, perhaps because the fighting stopped, the war ends, and the market climbs back to its previous trajectory. But once it's back on track, it might only last 3 days or a week. After that rally, what's next? The market will have to face something else, which is the pressure on cash flow returns from the massive capital expenditures of the major tech stocks, the 4 big CSP providers. Can that free cash flow be converted back into cash quickly? Can it return? That's going to be a major concern for the market going forward. That's one thing. Market anxiety over excessive capital expenditure. People were already talking about this before the war. The second concern, what I call credit finance cockroaches. This credit cockroach issue was mentioned by Jamie Dimon over at JP Morgan. And since last week, we've seen more and more companies announcing that their credit funds are suspending redemptions. Because lately, many firms have been facing redemptions. Funds are being pulled out, right? Many of them. Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone, they're all involved. So the market will rise after the war, but it'll only be a short-term gain. Once that's over, keep an eye on the 2 issues I just mentioned. These 2 factors will repeatedly impact market trends throughout this year. Keep them clearly in mind. One is the high capex of CSPs and when their cash flow will turn positive. Right now, most are still showing negative values, so the pressure is quite high. The second is the credit cockroach crisis, which will eventually return to the market's focus. So this answers the related questions from students yesterday. Okay, good night to Zhang as well. Good night. Whether it goes up or down depends entirely on Trump. That's true. You're welcome, Luden. All right, moving on. Let's take a look. Regarding the stance of officials' remarks, I'll also give you a brief update. This includes people like Barris or Goolsbee, who both mentioned that, anyway, current interest rates will remain unchanged. So the focus is on inflation. If inflation continues to heat up, then of course there might not be any rate cuts this year. If inflation gradually slows down and cools off because of the war, then there's still a chance for rate cuts this year. So the prerequisite is the war. When will it end? Has inflation been affected? Also, we just mentioned that Powell might get off scot-free. This is because the U.S. Department of Justice said they're investigating the renovation costs of Powell's Fed building. Previously, there were fears that the cost would jump from over $1 billion to $25 billion. Trump then argued that, as a Fed chairman, how could you let costs inflate so much? Is it a matter of fraud? However, after a court investigation, the judge and prosecutors said there's currently no evidence of misconduct. In other words, regarding this matter, Powell should be able to walk away unscathed. So what impact does getting off scot-free have on the Fed later on? Naturally, it increases its independence because Powell won't be replaced. He'll likely serve safely until his term ends in May, so there won't be much more interference from Trump. Thus, he can maintain the Fed's market, reputation, market influence, and independence. In fact, in the long run, for the Fed's future monetary policy development, it's a good thing. But the trade-off is, in the first half of this year, everyone shouldn't expect rate cuts too much. Why? Because Powell hasn't been replaced. To wait for him to be replaced and step down, it might be after May. After the transition in May, and then the new chairman gets settled, it might be June. So, whether there will be rate cuts in the second half is another story. We can only say the benefit is maintaining the Fed's credibility and independence, while the downside is no rate cuts in the first half. And yes, Noah, there's another variable. What variable? The new Fed chairman nominated by Trump, named Warsh. Okay, he's also a former governor. Warsh needs to go through March and April, passing votes in the financial committees of both the House and Senate. Only if they agree can he smoothly take over from Powell in May. But if the two houses don't agree then, it will be delayed for a long time. If they don't agree, Warsh's appointment will be stuck right there. The Fed can't be leaderless. So what happens then? Powell will just keep going. He'll stay on until Warsh can take office. In other words, there's a variable where, after May, Powell might not step down. He might just continue. Furthermore, if Powell actually hands over the reins to the next new chairman, Warsh, it's also said he might stay on as a governor. So, Governor Liu's position means he still has a vote, and that vote might be used to oppose Trump. He could cast a dissenting vote and not support rate cuts. Regarding this, I think in the future, it's also something we'll need to gradually observe and be concerned about after the US-Iran conflict ends. These issues will slowly surface. They will. But right now, the market is focused on inflation. They're looking at the US-Iran war and ignoring everything else. All those random minor things, even earnings reports, no one cares. Everyone is just focused on Iran, the US, and what Trump is saying. Oh, okay. Good evening, Anna Yao. Good evening. Now that's another matter. Next, the Reuters poll. What does the Reuters poll say? Hey, Grace Liao, good evening. The Reuters poll, it says, Trump's approval rating has dropped to 36%. It was 40 before, which wasn't high either. Now it's at 36%, the lowest since he returned to the White House. Meanwhile, those who disapprove of Trump's actions against Iran have reached 61%, up 2%. So his polling is down and disapproval is up. Honestly, I think Trump knows this himself. If this keeps dropping, if it continues to slide, his election prospects at the end of the year will be worrying, definitely worrying. Right, that's why you see Trump being proactive about negotiating with Iran. He's proposing things like a 5-day truce, a 1-month truce, a 15-day coordination period, and his 5-goal theory, that 5 goals can achieve a ceasefire and 15 issues can lead to coordination. Why keep offering so many olive branches and raising so many issues, hoping to negotiate with anyone connected to Iran, high level or low level? Why? Because he knows there's an election at the end of the year. He can't let this war drag on too long. The longer it lasts, the more things can go wrong. Also, let me give you some data. The new bond king, Gundlach, says that when you're watching the markets, you should keep an eye on this data, the VIX, which is the fear index. It's a volatility index. Regarding the fear index, the VIX, he said if it breaks 40, it means the market is in an oversold state. Everyone is panicking to the extreme. Everyone is selling stocks, pushing the fear index up to that 40 mark. At that point, it might mean the period of intense volatility is ending because everyone is already oversold. Not overbought, but oversold. Excessive bearishness. You can view it as an entry signal. What's it at now? Currently around 27 to 30. It's not at extreme panic yet. There's pressure and fear, but not extreme panic. Okay, let me give you another data point from last year. Last year, on April 7th, 2025, right after the Tomb Sweeping Festival, remember when Trump proposed global reciprocal tariffs and then the global stock markets crashed? Back then, the VIX fear index surged above 40. I recall it briefly peaked at 60. Looking at the intraday sequence, it hit 60 at most. Right now, it's around 30, so about half that, not that high. So, if the US-Iran conflict remains deadlocked and some strange gray swan or black swan event occurs and the VIX spikes, just remember, above 40, you can start looking for oversold buying opportunities. That's a possibility, so just keep this data in mind. All right, the 10-year Treasury yield has reached 4.5% and the terminal rate has surged to 3.7%. Anyway, it's just how it is with all these ups and downs. The higher the yield, the greater the pressure, of course. It's generally not great for the stock market or the economy. People are worried there won't be any rate cuts. Okay, good evening, hacker. Liberation Day, right? Back then, it was all about global reciprocal tariffs. And now, with this US-Iran conflict, Trump also mentioned a Liberation Day regarding when a ceasefire might happen. He suggested a specific date, though he hasn't stated it explicitly. Word is he might be looking at April 9th as a potential ceasefire date. Whether it actually happens, honestly, just depends on how the talks with Iran go. As for the number of rate cuts, it's down to 0.19 times, which basically means no cuts this year. It's all closely tied to the whole situation between the US and Iran. What about the US dollar index? It's holding steady on safe haven demand, down slightly by 0.07, but still above the 200-day moving average. Okay, let me tell you something quite interesting. I'm not sure what's going on these past couple of days. You know how gold prices have been sliding? It dropped from 5,500 all the way down to maybe 4,100 or so, a huge drop. It just hit the 200-day moving average. And I noticed something curious after finishing my late shift these past 2 nights. I don't know if there's some event happening. When I passed 2 jewelry stores near my place after work, they were brightly lit. It was after 10 p.m., yet both were wide open with huge crowds waiting outside, young and old alike. I have no idea what they were lining up for. I haven't had a chance to ask. Both shops had long lines. Maybe they're selling off their gold jewelry, or perhaps they're buying while the price is low. Or maybe there's some new promotion? I'm not sure if this is happening nationwide, so feel free to let me know if you've seen it. Have you noticed long lines outside jewelry stores near you lately? Is there some kind of nighttime event going on? If so, leave a comment. It just seems so strange. Since gold prices dropped to 4,100, as Emily mentioned, I wonder if people are rushing to buy gold now that it's hit the 200-day moving average? Or maybe they're worried it'll drop further and are cashing out their gold. Either way, it's bizarre seeing so many people lining up at jewelry stores these past 2 nights. I'll see if I can find out what they're actually waiting for or what they're trading in. All right, good evening, Jigaojia, Shengzhe Chen, and Edison7581. Someone asked, given the current pace of AI development, how should professionals in your industry adapt their careers? Is there still time to develop a second career before it takes over? That's an excellent question. Honestly, it's something that's causing us quite a bit of uncertainty and pressure right now, because to be honest, even here at Capital, we're developing our own AI tools. For instance, we have AI stock selection. We use AI for strategy evaluation, generating reports, and even picking short-term or high-dividend stocks, all sorts of things. Of course, AI stock picking isn't 100% accurate. It still requires a lot of human oversight. We have to manually adjust about 25 to 30% of the output because AI can get things wrong, sometimes even providing incorrect EPS data. Or it's a bit outdated, not the latest data, so we have to manually correct it. So we can only say that current AI isn't able to completely replace many professionals yet. Some might be like customer service or, say, translators. Those will be handled soon. Now, some so-called engineers and programmers are being replaced, including in Amazon. Microsoft, Meta, and Google have many engineers, maybe thousands or tens of thousands, who are just laid off. Why? Because AI is developing better and better, so AI will replace these people's jobs, including in the finance industry, including our finance industry right now. So Edison May just asked, what kind of plans should professionals have? Actually, I also have some sense of crisis. They say thrive in adversity and perish in soft living, right? So we also think, as professionals, maybe one day AI can pick stocks, AI can invest, AI can do algorithmic trading for you. Then do we need analysts? Maybe we won't. Maybe AI will just be a great financial butler for you. An AI financial butler, no analyst needed. So then, what kind of role should an analyst play? This is something everyone needs to think about, including all of your industries. There might be actuaries, insurance planners, whateverists, lawyers, or teachers could all be replaced by AI. So, is there a way for us to find a new second career? I think everyone should think about this. Since Edison brought this up, I think everyone should give it some thought. Besides our current professional expertise, is there a way to develop another second career? You can think about it. Maybe, what would my second career be? A food blogger? Or maybe I start my own channel and teach people how to invest or something? I don't know. I haven't thought of it yet, but I think this is a big question. I think it's a big, for myself, I think it's a concern. As AI gets better and better, what kind of role should I play in the whole financial industry? So that I won't be replaced. Oh, should I be the one double checking the AI's work? Probably not needed, because AI will get stronger and stronger. AI stock picking and AI analysis will definitely get better than me, because as a human, I'm limited. It'll definitely be better, and better. So how do I? In this industry or this field, how can I have some indispensability? I think I need to think hard about what to do. Maybe one day I'll leave the finance industry. Maybe I'll design a so-called AI stock picker myself. Design some AI strategy analysis or strategy thing. Then you can come by my AI know-how. Because everyone can. Everyone has their own AI. Everyone has their own AI tools, AI robots. Maybe my AI is better than your AI. I can train my AI robot. Yeah, I can train my AI lobster and make it very useful, even better at picking stocks. Or maybe it has more charisma. Oh, maybe it's like that. I don't know. Then I think that's when the distinction will be made. Like you have AI, I have AI. But my tool's better than yours. Why? Because I might add more of my own know-how into it. I'll correct it, I'll modify it. Then this AI tool might make it easier for everyone to make money. I think I might start working from that direction. And of course, developing a second career is also very important. So I'm just chatting with you all about this. Once the media reports it, everyone rushes to buy. There were reports about mainland China, but not really. We're Taiwanese. In Taiwan, we see many people went to buy today. Getting a visa just to come to Taiwan for Teacher Jiang's in-person class, right? Getting a visa is so much work. Transitioning to a travel YouTuber or maybe an investment in finance live streamer, that could have earning potential. I'll be the first to subscribe. Thanks. If one day I actually do that, it would mean AI has truly replaced my job. Then I might really have to start my own channel because the value of us teachers will gradually decrease. So we'll have to find a second career? Or maybe just retire and we'll just go rest. Anyway, there's a lot to talk about regarding this, but because of time constraints, I can't go into everything with you all. But honestly, when Edison mentioned and asked about this earlier, I've actually been thinking about this for the past month or two. I'm serious. I've been thinking about this myself. It's true. If we can't do this, what can we do? When our jobs are all replaced, what can we do? What can we do that would make more clients willing to come and listen to Teacher Jiang's classes? What exactly should we be talking about? Right, what can we say that AI can't? AI can't pick stocks or organize data the same way, but when you listen to my classes, you'll hear things AI doesn't have. I think that's the key. In the future, an important trade-off between humans and AI includes if some of you online, some of our students, as we just said, are lawyers, translators, accountants, in finance or whatever, maybe even a Supreme Court justice, whatever it is. With AI, we can look up legal clauses, we can ask for lots of information, we can find out which insurance policies are better. In contrast, when AI selects all these things, we might need a more professional person to help you analyze which of the things AI picked are actually good. Which ones are more useful? I think humans will ultimately perform a double check, making the data calculated by AI more valuable and practical. I think humans will play this role in the future, making things go from good to better or making them more. A human touch, maybe? Perhaps that's it? So it's not just a cold mechanical situation? All right, for the geopolitical risk part, we're live on YouTube every day. You can check it out, Coco Lee. Okay, well, let's talk about geopolitical risks. Trump mentioned a 1-month ceasefire in exchange for a 15-point agreement. Skim through these 15 points. I don't think it's fully finalized yet, but take a look. Dismantling nuclear facilities, no nukes, banning enriched uranium, handing over high enriched uranium, missile limits, and keeping the strait open. Actually, we talked about this yesterday. It boils down to 2 things: no nuclear weapons and missile restrictions. No nukes and limit the missiles. Just those 2. That's all Trump wants. If he gets those 2, he'll say he wants a ceasefire anytime. He won't care about Israel. He just wants a quick way out, a graceful exit, to stop the fighting. And what does Iran get? They get relief from international sanctions on their economy, livelihoods, oil, and transport. Plus, they can develop civilian nuclear power, like nuclear plants. Their infrastructure needs to improve, and after the war, will help with the reconstruction. Don't develop nuclear weapons, but you can have nuclear facilities for power. The United States can help with that. So, if there's a consensus, I think the war will end soon. If Iran accepts these 15 points, it'll be easy to handle. These 15 points are simple and doable. It just depends on what Iran wants to change or add. Right now, it looks like high-level nuclear talks could start as early as Thursday, but we're still waiting for Iran's response. So we'll wait for things to clear up and see how it goes. All right, definitely don't get into that Hui Zheng Wuxie or Make Way stuff, whatever that was. Hector just mentioned that teaching technical analysis for stocks will attract a lot of fans if the content is good. Yeah, Coco Lee mentioned this too. I've also been thinking about it and wanted to share. Like, look at all these live streams online. There are so many. Some have analyst licenses, some don't. Some are from brokerages, some from investment firms, and some are independent studios. Everyone is doing analysis, and each has its own style. So why do people choose one over another? There must be some unique know-how or charisma. Over time, you build a fan base and a target audience. The key is, with all that traffic, say if our jobs are replaced one day, how do you turn that traffic into income? That's the real question. Think about it. If you run a YouTube channel, maybe as a travel blogger or a food blogger, you might have tons of traffic, lots of fans, and a high sub count. But how do you turn that into cash? That's the problem. You can't just rely on view counts. You can't make money just from views. I'm telling you, for every 10,000 views on YouTube, I remember hearing this on a stream, it only translates to about 300 Taiwan dollars. 10,000 views only gets you $300. So if you're really just relying on view counts, you won't make any money unless you're like Lao Gao. Lao Gao's view counts are in the millions, 2 or 3 million people watching, 2 or 3 million views. If you do the math, he might make over 100,000 per episode. Unless you're like Lao Gao, Lao Gao and what's her name, Zhao Mo, that's pretty good to watch. Right, so besides that, what do most YouTubers do? They either, do tutorials or what else? Sponsored content. Sponsored content like maybe collaborating with a brokerage or with a certain product or a restaurant. Doing sponsored content is where the real money is. That's pretty much how it works. That's about it. Okay, so moving on. Anyway, I'm getting a bit off track here. I'm afraid I won't finish the material for today. So regarding Iran, Trump said that Iran is slowly negotiating with him, and they mentioned some kind of big oil and gas gift. He said Iran wants to give Trump a gift related to oil and natural gas to show sincerity for the negotiations, but Trump won't reveal the details of the gift. Don't you think that's strange? It's all just him talking. He's the one saying there are negotiations. He's the one saying there's a gift. If there's a gift, you should be happy to announce it like, wow, Iran is offering a gift, but you don't say anything. But then you tell everyone about plans to deploy 3,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. And what the Marines are going to see is, if the Marines eventually take Karg Island, it could be used for reinforcements. So does Trump really want a ceasefire and negotiations? Or is it just a smokescreen to delay things for the airborne or the Marines to seize the island for a landing operation? We don't know yet. Is it possible he's doing the same thing again, just like what happened on February 28th this year? Do you know why the fighting started on February 28th? Not the February 28th incident from the White Terror, it just happened to be on February 28th. On February 28th, Trump was still telling the whole market, that he was going to negotiate with Iran on March 2nd. He even said there would be negotiations, but then after saying there would be talks on March 2nd, you just attacked 2 days before. Right, it was a total smokescreen. I tell the whole world I'm negotiating with Iran in 2 days, that it'll go well, a good chance to talk. Then you attack 2 days before, and the fighting has lasted 25 days now. So Trump is doing the same thing this time, talking about some 15-point agreement for a 1-month ceasefire. Is it real or fake? Honestly, I don't know. None of us do. Looking at the reality, I believe Trump doesn't really want a scorched earth war. One thing is for sure, Trump doesn't want a scorched earth war, and Israel doesn't want a permanent war either, so that's certain. That's also certain. As for how to view these negotiations, whether it's a smokescreen or real, we'll find out in the next few days. Because he said at the very earliest, there might be some talks on Thursday. So whether Iran is willing to negotiate, the ball is in their court now. If Iran is willing to negotiate and both sides have a way to save face, I think there will be a mutual understanding. And if there's a good understanding, crude oil prices will drop. Like yesterday and today, it fell 4.18% today, dropping to around the 20-day moving average. So how will the conflict between the US and Iran evolve? Is it good or bad? I think we need to observe for a while longer. As I just said, don't be overly pessimistic. Don't be too pessimistic, but don't be so optimistic as to think that if a ceasefire happened today, the global stock markets would suddenly shine and wow, skyrocket and surge for 2 months. It wouldn't quite be like that. Not quite. I believe a ceasefire would lead to a short-term rally, but it won't be a long-term one, because after all, everyone has made a lot of money over these past 3 years. In the future, people will start worrying about the concerns I mentioned regarding excessive capital expenditure. And then there's this whole thing about financial credit cockroaches. These are all things to consider moving forward. So we can only say that between pessimism and optimism, we should take a more moderate, middle ground approach. Take profits when prices are high and look for buying opportunities in good companies when prices are low. That's about it. Remember, when there's a sharp drop, that's the time to buy. When there's a sudden surge, if you encounter a sharp rise, sell first. Selling during a sharp rise is safer. Okay, as for the economic data, it's now 35 past the hour. Let's look at the recently released monthly import price index. For February, the US import price index surged to 1.3%. Right, it surged to 1.3%. This means that overall price pressure is slowly and quietly starting to stir. We say it's stirring because it's higher than expected and higher than the previous value, reaching 1.3%. I think the March data will be even higher. The March figures might be higher. So everyone should keep this data in mind, which is that inflation is showing signs of stirring. At the very least, it hasn't come down. It's not decreasing further because the US-Iran conflict has created expectations of rising inflation. So including this monthly import price index reaching 1.3%. I'm just adding that for you. As for earnings reports, there's no need for special observation yet. Waiting for Nike's report around April 1st should be enough. As for what we mentioned earlier about Microsoft and NVIDIA, what have Microsoft and NVIDIA been collaborating on lately? They're working together to develop AI tools related to nuclear energy. These are used for things like simplifying approvals and accelerating design and development. They both believe that nuclear energy is extremely important for the future development of AI. This is because every industry needs electricity. Without power, basically nothing can run, and that includes AI. Now, remember something. NVIDIA's Jensen Huang once mentioned a 5-layer cake theory. Actually, I told you about this 5-layer cake theory a long time ago. It wasn't just something Jensen Huang said at this recent GTC conference. A month before the GTC conference, Jensen Huang had actually already talked about it. He talked about the 5-layer cake theory. Let's review it, shall we? Let's review the 5-layer cake theory. He said the entire development of AI is like a 5-layer cake, layer upon layer, stacked up and up until it finally becomes a very delicious cake. What's this first layer, the bottom layer, called? Energy. Energy. All systems must have energy to operate. Energy is the first layer. What's the second layer? Chips. For example, AMD chips or NVIDIA's GPU chips, whether it's the B100, G100, or the Rubin series. The second layer consists of these crucial high-process, high-end chips. And the third layer? The third layer is infrastructure. Is it set up well? Servers, networks, bandwidth, and so on? Can they be built excellently? Is there a campus and are the data centers built well? The third layer is called infrastructure. What's the fourth layer? Once all those are in place, the fourth layer is the AI models. Can these models start operating effectively? Oh, Claude's, this platform, or OpenAI's ChatGPT, or even Google's Gemini. or what we call Tesla's Grok, and so on. Can these things become more and more stable? As AI platforms improve and thrive, the final fifth layer is the application side. This AI is developing well, from chips and energy chips to infrastructure to AI models and finally to the application side. The entire chain is being established. After that, we can use it in our lives and it'll get better and better. This includes things like general AI or AI agents and so on, which are currently being developed with a lot of buzz. Of course, the most important part is the bottom layer, this power generation and energy. It's crucial. Without this base layer of the cake, everything on top is just for show. Without that first layer of the cake, everything above is fake. So Microsoft and NVIDIA have started developing tools related to nuclear energy. Speaking of power generation, there are many concept stocks like VST, CEG, and GEV, or those related to nuclear raw materials like UUU or UEC. All of these can be considered. Right now, I'll just take a quick look at some of these energy companies. Currently, the strongest one left is probably GV. GV is relatively strong and keeps hitting new highs. Other companies are mostly correcting after big gains and are still bottoming out. But GV, because it's a spinoff from GE, focuses specifically on power generation, like wind, hydro, nuclear, gas, and electrical equipment. They do it all. So GEV's stock price has been hitting new highs lately. It's very strong, up 3.03 yesterday. Of course, NVIDIA and Microsoft are also quite bullish on energy. So if you happen to hold GEV in your energy concept stocks, the trend still looks bullish. It's much stronger than the overall US stock indices. Okay, good evening, Melissa. Good evening. So you can just trade along the 20-day or 50-day moving average. It rose 3.03 yesterday, hitting a new high of $909. Among these energy stocks, GEV is relatively strong and can be used as an important indicator to track. And then there's Circle. Circle plummeted 20% yesterday. Why? It was very strong recently, jumping from $40 all the way up to nearly $130, almost a threefold increase. Then yesterday, it took a big hit, dropping 20%. Let me say first, a 20% drop in the short term is a correction after a big run, so there's pressure, but it's not a total collapse. Why? Let me draw this neckline, this blue neckline here. If it pulls back toward this line and doesn't break it, it might gradually approach the 50-day moving average. If it doesn't break the quarterly average or this trend line, there's no need to worry too much. Instead, you can view it as a short-term correction. Now, there's a reason why it dropped 20% yesterday. It's because they stepped on the bank's toes. They're moving in on their territory. Circle is primarily a stablecoin issuer. We've spent a lot of time before talking about stablecoins, Bitcoin, virtual currencies, and various issuers, including some. There are trading companies like Coinbase or NST or Circle and so on. Now, Circle is a stablecoin issuer, and recently there's been a bill, a crypto bill called the Clarity Act, I think it's called. Clarity, right? The Clarity Act. It says it strictly prohibits stablecoin deposits on the platforms of these issuing companies. Not only can't they can't, what can't they do? They can't give interest or rewards to users who deposit stablecoins. Why? Because the banking industry opposes it. Why do they oppose it? Because they think if these customers like you and me, if we buy stablecoins and deposit them on these platforms, then these platforms will pay us interest. They'll pay me rewards, so wouldn't I deposit more and more money on these platforms to earn interest? For example, this exchange called Coinbase, C-O-I-N, Coinbase gives stablecoin depositors an annual interest rate of 3.5%, which is pretty good. So what does that 3.5% represent? It means you're competing with the banks. You're taking business from banks, and banks have interest pressure on deposits and loans, and they need deposit income. So if all users go and deposit with Circle or Coinbase, then what do the banks earn? So they lobbied these politicians saying you need to pass the Clarity Act to prohibit these issuers from giving interest to stablecoin depositors because you're stepping on the bank's business. That's the idea. So they crossed the line. They're stepping on the toes of these established banking interests. That's why if this bill is officially announced, it will naturally have a major impact on these so-called crypto issuers, because if it's certain they can't give interest, then customers will be less likely to want to deposit their stablecoins. I mean, if I'm going to deposit, I'll just put it in a bank. The bank gives me 3.5% and it's guaranteed. But if I buy stablecoins like USDT or any crypto or Tether, but you don't give me interest, then why would I deposit it with your company? It's that kind of situation. So that's why Circle plummeted 20% yesterday, because if this bill passes, these customers might leave. That's the reason. Okay, Banana Xiang, good evening. Okay, May 6, hello. You bought Eura, right? Okay, staff, good evening to you too. Good evening, everyone. Good night. Okay, back then, there was a channel that could just tell adult jokes or something. I don't know. I know YouTube is really a mixed bag. There are all kinds of channels. I've seen some channels where, they don't even talk. They just don't talk. They just set up a camera and film the host. And what's the host doing? Eating, watching TV, scrolling on their phone. And they still get views. I think it's pretty impressive. Or like if I go camping, outdoor camping, I'm camping, cooking, setting up a tent. I don't say a word. I just set up the tent, film it, start a fire. And if you just set up a camera and do a live stream, plenty of people will watch. I'm telling you, the traffic is huge. Of course, to some extent, it's because the host is pretty, like a beautiful female host. So the traffic is exceptionally good. So I think there's a big business opportunity here, a huge one. As long as you have a unique style, you'll naturally attract many different audiences. But the key is still how you turn that audience and traffic into money. It's very important. I think doing sponsored content is the fastest way to make money. Sponsorships are one way. For example, like you said, you set up a camera and don't say a word. Just broadcast me eating, watching TV, and just hanging out. Maybe while I'm eating, I might open a pack of instant noodles. Actually, those noodles might be a sponsored product. Or if I'm scrolling on a phone or using some kind of charger, power bank, or cable, that charging device might be a sponsorship. And you're just watching me use it the whole time. Right? So I'm actually advertising, but you just don't know it. This is also a method, and I think it's a good one because it's simple and easy. Maybe one day it'll be like that. Okay, last week, Gino bought 2 shares of GEB. Okay, it's D, so Gino should have made some money. All right, and one last thing to mention. Since Edison just asked if AI could replace many jobs, it's actually quite scary. I'll share this final piece of news with everyone. Anthropic has stirred things up again, and the impact is huge. Anthropic announced that its Claude AI platform has, advanced again. How has it advanced? The current version of Claude AI can now control a user's computer. It can completely perform tasks on a user's computer. In other words, if I give it a command, I can tell Claude to fill out forms, buy plane tickets, book a restaurant, or do whatever, and it'll handle everything for you. I don't have to do it myself. It does it all for me. Whether you're trying to grab tickets or whatever, it handles it. It's just like that Lobster software we talked about the other day. OpenClaude, or Lobster. What is Lobster? It's what's called an AI agent. It's basically your AI avatar. You tell it to do all your AI work. For instance, you can have it find any information or data, or have it do anything for you. But once you give it permission, it acts as your personal assistant. It'll execute those tasks, look up information, and even write reports for you. But the catch is you have to give it access. You have to give it control of your computer so it can process that data. That's what OpenClaude, that Lobster software, does. Now, Anthropic says Claude can also do this. It's capable, but the success rate isn't quite there yet. It's still in testing, but it can do it now. Once this news broke, software stocks took another hit and tanked. Today, J.P. Morgan mentioned they've downgraded SAP, a major German software company with 110,000 employees. J.P. Morgan lowered its rating and cut the price target to 175 euros, which is about $202. Why? They said it's because AI infrastructure is becoming more mature, and SAP's cloud orders might slow down further. Plus, with more uncertainties around new strategies, it's becoming harder to predict. He thinks it'll be very difficult for SAP's future revenue growth to accelerate again. He thinks it's very difficult. So you can imagine that AI is now all-encompassing, affecting many different industries. In fact, including what? Including YouTube. YouTubers might even be replaced. Why? As you probably know, there are many YouTube shows now that use AI to find topics for you. Once the topics are chosen, AI can create presentations, generate voiceovers, and even act as a host or create the video itself. So it's all done by AI. AI picks the topics, AI writes the reports, AI makes the videos, and then it's posted directly to YouTube. It updates every single day, faster than any human could. And with daily updates, everyone is watching. It's all AI generated, no humans involved at all. This is happening now, and it's very common. Many of those short videos, like 3 or 5 minutes or even 10-minute videos, many are made by AI. A lot of them are AI. Even the voiceovers and narrations are all AI voices. We just can't tell the difference. But I, Teacher Jeng, am real right now. I'm real. This isn't a voiceover. But one day, you might see this image of me, my lip syncing, my mouth movements, my image, and I'm telling you, it'll all be AI. It'll all be AI. I'll just need to specify today's topic, ask AI to find the relevant info, and it'll synthesize everything and upload these videos with daily updates. It can all be done. It's impressive, truly impressive. So JP Morgan is kicking these software companies while they're down by downgrading them. Actually, these companies didn't just start falling today. Look at SAP's weekly chart. It's been falling for a while now, and it dropped 2.73% yesterday. It broke what? The 200-week moving average, not the 200-day, but the 200-week. It's a massive drop, falling from $300, nearly cutting its value in half, in just about 6 months. So software stocks are still very weak lately. Try to avoid them if you can, because the industry-wide impact of AI is still huge, and it's only going to get bigger in the future. So everyone needs to be a little careful. That's my update on SAP. Finally, let's look at some gainers in US pre-market trading. EchoStar is up 6%. Why? Because word is that SpaceX is expected to start filing for its IPO around June this year. So related rocket and satellite companies are surging. Also, Newmont is up 4.6%. Robinhood, Coinbase, and Intel are also up 3 to 4%. Why is Intel up today? It's rising pre-market because of reports that Intel and AMD might raise CPU prices this March or April. They'll raise prices. I saw reports about the price hikes, which is why Intel is up 3% pre-market. On the flip side, CF Industries is down. It's down 4%. They're in fertilizers. With tensions between the US and Iran easing, it's down nearly 4.7% pre-market, which is a lot. Also, Apache, Occidental Petroleum, ConocoPhillips, Diamondback Energy, and ExxonMobil are all down 1% pre-market. Why? Because crude oil prices fell due to the US-Iran situation. Oil price fluctuations are tied to geopolitical risks are closely linked. So naturally, if those risks cool down, tech stocks will find it easier to rise. Dell hit a new high yesterday and was very strong. In fact, many companies are strong, but the strong stay strong while the weak stay weak. There's a lot going on. Oh, right. I'll check your comments in a bit. Like that worker, Kate Colio, mentioned some YouTube-related content or their shows. It's quite interesting. I'll take my time later to look through what everyone shared. Okay, the Dow fell 0.18% yesterday. As usual, don't be overly optimistic until it stays above the 200-day moving average. It's safer to wait for it to reclaim that annual line. For now, watch more and do less. Just wait for geopolitical risks to cool. Keep 20 to 30% in cash to guard against an unknown drop. Finding a buying point then would be a safer strategy. As for the Philly semi, it rose 1.28% yesterday. It's holding the trend line for now, but honestly, that support doesn't feel very stable. It's not very firm. Now, for the Magnificent 7, this neckline and the 200-day average are still trending down. It fell another 1.37% yesterday. Microsoft fell, Google was hit hard, and Apple is just stalling. Tesla had a slight bounce, but it's still weak. Meta is also weak, and Amazon is just consolidating after its big run. So many of the Magnificent 7 are still struggling, especially Microsoft. It's really weak. As we said, it might drop back to its starting point from last October. You can see it for yourself. We mentioned it yesterday. It even hit a new low yesterday, so be careful. So for these stocks and indices, keep your positions under control. Watch individual stocks more and trade less. Keep some of your capital in a safe spot. I think waiting for the dust to settle before looking for buying points is the best approach right now. All right, that's it for Capital Good Night. We bring you the latest news before the US market opens. Remember to like, subscribe, and share before you go. Finally, I wish you all successful trading. See you tomorrow.
Our company has no improper financial interests in the individual securities recommended or analyzed. The information in this program is for reference only. Investors should make independent judgments, evaluate carefully, and bear their own investment risks. If you don't want to miss the latest market updates, be sure to turn on the notification bell and hit subscribe. In addition, we have plenty of great video content on both Facebook and YouTube. Don't miss out. In our group, we share in-depth explanations of global financial events with you every day.